welcome back to the Metal Teddy Bear Experience here on 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. This is your host, Chris, and with me on the line, I have a very special guest. I have Dylan Walker, the vocalist of Full of Hell. What's up, man? How you doing today?
Hey, man. How's it going?
Pretty good. It's been a little hectic, but glad to be back on air. We had a power outage earlier today, so all the locks and swipes were not working correctly. So my show got a little delayed, and luckily we finally entered the studio, and I'm now talking to you. So I'm very happy.
Sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, we were off air for a little bit. You heard drills going on because, construction is always happening. There's always something happening, but we're back and glad to be talking to you. How's your day been going?
Great. We're leaving for tour in like 48 hours, so I've just been getting prepared for that,
Nice. Who are you touring with?
We're going on tour with a band called Primitive Man from Denver and a band from Washington, D.C. called Genocide Pact. And it's a U.S. tour, and all three bands are on Relapse Records. Should be pretty great, I think.
Yeah, Genocide Pact. They're really grindcore-y as well, right? Very hard. Is that the same band?
No, it's definitely like really straightforward, good, groovy death metal. And Primitive Man, of course, is like sludge.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, maybe I just getting my genres mixed up because I'm not too 100% on that. But let's talk a little bit about your band, Full of Hell, and your brand new album, Weeping Choir. Like you said, it's on Relapse Records, and it came out May 17th. So that's a pretty recent release. How's it been doing so far on your end?
I mean, everything seems pretty positive. You never really know what to expect. We're pretty happy with the record itself. So I think we could have withstood some negative feedback, but everybody's been positive so far. Just bracing my knuckles for the negative stuff. It's been good so far, though.
No, I don't think you're gonna get any negative. This was on a lot of lists of most anticipated albums. Just from looking at those lists online, I think actually Metal Sucks, Metal Injection, one of those metal sites had you guys on there. You guys have a really big cult following. I feel like you're one of those bands that everyone's always waiting, because I think the last time you put something out was with 2017, right, with your collaboration.
Collaboration with The Body.
Yeah.
One.
So cool. So with this album, Weeping Choir, what was your mindset going in recording, and your whole I don't know if you have a whole album concept for lyrically, but maybe something what did you want to write about? What were you guys trying to push with this record?
Well, I think Spencer's whole purpose for the record was to kind of sum up all of what he felt was our best assets, over the past 9 or 10 years of us playing together. In Trumpeting Ecstasy, the album before that one, we kind of dialed it back so that it could be kind of a groundwork of who we are as the core four-piece. There wasn't as much going on electronically. This time around, we kind of just wanted to go a little bit crazy with all of that kind of stuff. And I think everybody just wanted to shine in their individual parts. And as far as on my side of things with art and lyrics, I didn't intentionally start out thinking that I wanted to make a companion album to the last one, but as I was writing, it kind of naturally started tying in. And then we brought in, a favorite artist of mine, Mark McCoy, and he just kind of distilled all the lyrics into something that, really fleshed out into a perfect foil to Trumpeting Ecstasy. So it was all kind of natural, honestly. No really strict guidelines in our heads when we were going into it.
How long did it take you to write and record?
We tour a lot, so we spent a year-ish writing, but out of that, I mean, a fraction of that was actual writing. We took a lot more time than we normally would. We're usually in top gear, moving as fast as we can. But since we took more time writing and rehearsing, it reflected in the studio, I think, because we only spent 4 or 5 days recording the record. Everybody went really, really fast, and it didn't take a whole lot of time. So that was nice, to see that return after working on the record for so long.
So you had 11 tracks, and it only took you 4 to 5 days?
Yeah, and I mean, in perspective, the album's 25 minutes long, so I can't imagine, if we were a band a band like Sumac or something whose songs are 11 minutes long, I assume it would take a lot longer. But yeah, it was 11 songs in 4 or 5 days. But we prepare to an anal degree, every single time, and we've been doing it together for a bunch of years now, and I feel like we're starting to get a groove of like how to operate in a studio. And Kurt Ballou is a great engineer. He's like a big part of why everything goes so fast. He's good at his job.
For people who don't know, Kurt Ballou is the what do you call it? The guitarist for Converge, and he's done a lot of great records. And I'm just really curious how it was initially. Like, how'd you get to work with him? And was it like super easy? Did he also produce the record as well as mix it?
He had a little bit more of a production hand this time around. We met Kurt through playing with Converge, and it was actually kind of funny because we grew up huge fans of Converge. We're still big fans of Converge, and a few years ago, maybe like 4 years ago, we just started having people come up to us, friends of Kurt's, and they were just like, "Hey, Kurt told me to tell you to record your next record with him," and that happened like 3 or 4 times, and we were just like, "This is crazy," to have this guy want to record us. And then we met him at a festival, and he was just such a super chill, funny, cool guy, and he knows the band. Like he's familiar with what we're trying to go for. So we decided to give it a shot, and I felt like he's got it down. It's like the perfect mix between like a huge production and still sounding a little raw. And as far as production goes, I think he's like a good producer for us because we're so picky about how our records sound and what goes on in the records that we don't really need like a super hands-on producer. But Kurt finesses things in just the right way. He makes suggestions about vocal rhythms if they need to be changed, if they're a little awkward. He's a great guitar player, so he's always like, there to give Spencer some like creative feedback. And it's the same thing with Dave. Kurt's like an expert at recording drums, so if there's like a hiccup in a drum fill or something, he's going to catch it, and he just knows his place. I think he understands bands that he records, and we're like pretty fortunate to have forged that kind of friendship and working relationship with him.
Well, you said that he's a great guitarist as well, and he kind of knows rhythms and all that. Did he ever like lay down like a lick or something, like, hey, maybe try it like this, or ever show you something like from like you said he's really good at drums as well? Do you ever like play them at all, or did he just kind of like tell you what to try out?
Generally just kind of vocalizing what he thinks we should do, but on the Trumpeting Ecstasy record, we were building this song that was just like a drum beat we got from the drummer of The Body and a bunch of noise and this singer Nicole Dollanganger's vocals. We were building it and we felt it was missing something, and he's the one that suggested to detune a bass, kind of like Torch style, where it's just like bomb bass, and he played the bass on that song. And this time there was talk about possibly having like a dueling saxophone thing going on because Sam played saxophone on the record, and Kurt's like a longtime sax player, I guess. That didn't happen that time, but Kurt's like pretty into, I think he's into contributing to the records if it strikes him. So I think he's always down to do that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, totally. I just thought maybe he would, jump right in there, because I feel like you guys just mix so well. I feel like Converge and you guys and his style and the way he like produces and stuff. That's why I wouldn't be surprised if he just lay down a lick for you guys or a riff or something like that.
No, not yet. But I'm sure that's not an impossibility, and we do have a lot in common with Converge, like ethically and otherwise. We operate in a lot of the same ways. Yeah, we totally vibe well with them.
So one of the tracks that kind of stands out to me when I go through it is track number 4, Rainbow Coil. Could you go into a little bit about that song? Like what was your like mind behind that song? Like, how did you guys record that? How did you come up with Rainbow Coil?
Spencer and I, when we were discussing the album, there was always talk about where the non-traditional songs would be in the record and like what kind of things we wanted to go for. And we ended up deciding that we kind of wanted like a junk electronics kind of song. So I really wanted to chop up Dave's drum tracks and just like glitch them out. So after recording drums the first day, I got the raw drum tracks from Kurt, and I just sat upstairs and just kind of like hacked them to pieces and pieced them back together. And then we used those to kind of build, and we used a bunch of like weird sort of instruments that are made out of like metal rods and springs. They're like active pickup spring machines basically, to just kind of create textures that we liked. And and then we just threw it all together and tried to give it like a climax and kind of a flow that made sense in our heads.
So it kind of so
then we kind of like articulated ourselves as best we could to Kurt, like we want this kind of effect on this section of the drums, and he helped us with a lot of the Pro Tools like echo and reverse, all that kind of stuff going on.
So would it be safe to say that it kind of like happened along the way? Like you guys didn't go in there originally, right? With like that whole thing, it just kind of like you did this and did that and it came together?
Yeah, and we kind of got that vibe from the body. Like a lot of the magic that happens with that kind of unconventional stuff is the fact that you're kind of doing it on the spot and finding something that works in the studio. It's not something we would have done like years ago until we started recording with the body. Both of our collabs with the body were written in the studio. Like we had some vague ideas, like we want a song with this kind of tempo or this kind of jungle beat or some kind of ridiculous little idea. And then we build it from the ground up in the studio, starting with the drums. And we just kind of applied that technique with this track. And I don't know, it turned out the way we wanted it to. But definitely, it always turns out a little different than you imagine it.
Would you say like that's probably one of your most like creative songs on the album? Or is there another one that you really thought you guys did an outstanding job on?
I feel pretty good about all of them. I really like the song. It's called "You Grumble the Many." It's near the end of the record. I like that one a lot because it has saxophone on it. I always want like more horns, more woodwind stuff. So hopefully it's something we do more. But I guess if you're talking purely from like improvisational and like creative standpoint, Rainbow Coil's probably it, just because we wrote it in the studio and we had like a lot of freedom and we weren't really sure how it was going to sound until we made it.
You said that you're a fan of the saxophone and all that. It just made me think of Rivers of Nile. Do you dig those guys?
Yeah, I've known those guys since they formed their band, and the band before that. Their ex-guitar player is actually in Outer Heaven now, too. And we've known each other since we were like 14, 15 years old. And yeah, Rivers is a crazy band because the band before that was just like a really sick, like slamming, brutal death metal band. And when Rivers first formed, they still had that kind of DNA, but you could tell they were going to go for something different. And now it's crazy where they're at now. The music is just like, it's so expressive and proggy and all over the place. And yeah, I heard the saxophone stuff and it rules.
Oh yeah, definitely. I got to see them at St. Vitus. They played 2 nights there and played their entire album, Where Owls Know My Name. They played that entire album live. It was a lot of fun, and I do love saxophone and metal.
Very cool.
Yeah, right. All right, so during my show, I asked 3 random silly questions. Are you ready to take part?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, question number 1. What's a fad that you went through or a trend that you followed back in your teens or when you were a kid that you kind of regret or like embarrassed of now? It makes you cringe.
Well, okay, so I'm just going to use a reference point to how I'm kind of prepping for this tour. Spencer and I have been revisiting this band, Horse the Band's tour documentary, and I use this for the fad question, not because I'm particularly embarrassed that as a kid I thought Horse the Band was cool, but because I'm kind of like having a reversal of opinion on them because I thought their music was so whack from like 15 onward. There was such a small space of time where I loved that weird sound that they were doing, but I'm watching this world tour documentary where they toured 45 countries in 90 days and basically mentally crumbled along the way, and it gives me PTSD because it's like the dark points of every DIY tour that any of us have ever experienced. So I'm like actually vigorously defending that band now. While their shtick may have gotten old, that was definitely a time in my life where it might have been like something goofier that I was listening to. But I have to respect them right now when I'm watching this documentary.
Of course, I feel like what do you call that? DIY shows they're fun, but they're really rough on the bands. If something goes wrong, and sometimes you don't have the best like venue that you're playing at. Sometimes it's just like a basement with like not great sound. But they're fun, but they can be stressful at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, DIY culture is like part of who we are as a band. So I don't think we're ever gonna like separate from it. But when you're traveling abroad like that for long periods of time, it can be just so soul crushing because failure is like totally part of it, especially if you play some kind of absurd type of music, like we do, or any of our peers. Like you got to be braced for failure, and watching it secondhand is a little bit easier than experiencing it, but you're still just like, oh my god.
Question number 2. If any celebrity would have their own candy bar, who would it be, and what would it be called?
Oh man, that's a weird question.
Exactly.
Hulk Hogan, his candy bar would be a thin layer of that fake vanilla chocolate encased around a big, thick, old hot dog. Like, just hot dog.
Oh, man.
Like a white chocolate hot dog bar.
What would you call it?
The Hogan. I don't really have a witty name for it. I just like, those are the flavors in my head, is that false white chocolate mixed with salty hot dog.
Yeah, sure.
I would probably eat it under certain influences. I'd probably buy a Hogan.
Yeah, right. It kind of makes sense though. You know, you hear Hogan, you think of hoagie a little bit. Kind of sounds the same, but
he just has hot dog skin. He looks like he's got like cooked hot dog skin.
That he does.
That's what I thought of.
It's like that rubbery feel. That's actually really good. I got Bjork nuts before. That was pretty good, and in the shape of a steering wheel. You know the artist Bjork?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Bjork nuts was one.
Devin, that's real.
Yeah, Devin Townsend told me that Bjork nuts, and I was like, that's pretty good.
Whoa.
In the shape of a steering wheel. Okay, question number 3. Brace yourself for this one. This one's gonna be super crazy. Okay, so what is your irrational fear?
I don't know. I have this like constant weird dual fear and embrace of going on tour. To be honest, like right now, I guess it's pretty accurate, because there's just so many things that can go wrong and just like feel like they ruin your life. And so before I leave for a long tour, I'm always just kind of like freaking out a little bit in my head. I think we all are.
So it's like
I'm just gonna pick that just because it's like right in my periphery right now.
But it's more like just a little bit of nerves, like kind of like stage fright almost.
I wouldn't even pinpoint it to that. You know, it's just like over the years, and I know musicians can relate to me, when stuff goes really wrong. Like, I don't know, we've had a bunch of crazy stuff happen, but say you get like stranded in Moldova, and you're just like, why am I here? Is this worth my mortality? Like, to be like stranded here for this music? And like, I don't know, the dark points where you just like something you really care about becomes like a thorn in your side. That's like something to be afraid of, when something you love becomes something that ruins your life.
But I guess something on tour always makes you change your mind, right? Makes it seem like it's worth it because you guys keep going. You guys play strong.
It's almost always positive, but you have to be prepared. Something could go wrong.
True. My irrational fear is spiders.
Spiders, yeah. I mean, that's irrational only sometimes. You know, it's pretty rational. And like in Australia or something, the spiders will just kill you.
Oh yeah. Here, we're from New Jersey over here, so we're pretty lucky. We don't have those.
Probably have brown recluse though.
What was that?
You probably have the brown recluse. If it bites you, it causes like necrotic flesh if you don't take care of it. Pretty venomous.
Bro, why'd you tell me that?
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. They hide in old shoes and like gloves and pillowcases and in your ears.
Oh my god.
That kind of thing.
Oh man, terrified right now, crawling out of my skin. All right, so that was the random silly question segment. Hope you enjoyed that.
Yeah,
so like you said before, you're about to go on tour with Primitive Man and Genocide Pact. This lasts all the way till June. I think you guys finish it in Brooklyn Bazaar, which is a great venue, by the way. Have you played there before?
I haven't been there before. We've been playing Vitus and like, you know, a bunch of other clubs in town, but we've never been to that one.
Yeah, no, Vitus is amazing. I love Vitus. That's like the most metal venue bar, you know, that you can go to. I just love it there.
Yeah, I got really strong feelings about that venue. We've played there so many times at this point, but that's like the room. I feel like that venue is world famous. You know, there's a venue in Australia that's like an homage to it, basically. Like they basically like followed the business model of Vitus. It's called Crowbar, and it's just cool to see the cultural impact of a bar like St. Vitus, you know, across continents.
That's actually pretty awesome that they're Australia, and it made its way all the way out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's pretty damn
absolutely
awesome. But thank you for taking time out to do this interview. I really appreciate it. And everyone, make sure you guys go see them at Brooklyn Bazaar. That will be on June 14th, so look out for that. Thank you, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man. Have a good night.